Hello, Hockey World. We are so happy to be with you today. And but first, it's Russ Cohen with something to say.
Yeah, quick one. Tyler Glasnow, a really talented pitcher for Tampa, has come down with a partially torn UCL, and he has blamed the substance crackdown from MLB on the injury because now he can't get as good a grip on the ball, and said that's why he got injured. And I have to say, I like Glasnow as a pitcher. I don't care about what his flimsy excuse is, because at the end of the day, you're a major league pitcher. And if you're relying on that stuff, which was illegal, it was illegal from the start of the season. If you were relying on that to keep you healthy, then that's on you. And so I just, I don't understand it. Now they've also outlawed sunscreen, which I get because it's another substance you can put on the ball. But to blame an injury on it, I just don't get it.
Great. So when a starting pitcher sues Major League Baseball for getting skin
cancer,
for sunscreen?
Russ, I 97.35% agree with you.
I like the exactness.
But 2.65 of me is a little concerned because I've read numerous quotes from hitters who are concerned that the pitchers can't use that because they don't want to get hit. And
Alonso was the first to say it. I remember that.
Yeah, well, there's a few floating around out there, and several of them know enough about it to know that a lot of pitchers use this, to control the baseball because they're all trying to put that incredible spin on it.
Explain to me what this stuff is. What is this stuff?
It's called spider tack. It basically is a sticky substance that allows pitchers to have better a better grip on the ball. Okay. So they can spin the ball more and then actually move the ball better at high speeds. And
they use it in mountain climbing to get a grip.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Mountain climbing.
Now I heard the potential compromise. I can't remember if it was Jeff Passan or one of the other baseball insiders out there that apparently the Japanese league uses a ball that has a surface that is a little more of a sticky surface. And that they maybe next year they may adopt that. But honestly, changing a rule in the middle of the year,
you can't do it.
It's a typical Rob Manfred acidine.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that. I agree with you completely on that, Mike. But it is kind of a safety thing. Like they really thought when they first started down the path of that, and now what they're finding out, it might be a safety thing the other way. That pitchers actually do need this. So, I think there was
still on the pitcher to have better control, Kev. It's not like they've been using this stuff since 1950. They have
but they weren't trying to spin the ball in the 1950s. That's true. Like they are now. And there's just genuine kind of concern about what's happening. But here's the most remarkable thing. I don't know if they showed this on every baseball game, but since this was announced, hitting is at as we all baseball fans know, is down significantly, batting average. Since they announced that they were going to start checking the pitchers, batting averages have risen about 8.
It's friggin' psychological. It's just
like 236 to 240 something.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Gary Sanchez is in the 230s when he was hitting 180.
Isn't this psychological mostly though? Like the play?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
No. Well, here's the other. Do they still allow? Remember grip tape on hockey, like hockey sticks, grip tape?
Yeah.
You guys would tape your sticks with grip tape.
They use grip tape. They can even use pine tar now, which they weren't able to use in the 80s. So you could use. Can you put grip tape? Can you put grip tape on the bottom of your stick? Can you do that?
Yeah.
I always wondered that, if that would help you that would give you more of a. I'm a goalie, so I didn't know if people did this or not. I mean, I know grip tape was made for the top of your stick mainly.
It's all a question of what Major League Baseball deems to be legal. They have rosin bags on the pitcher's mound, so rosin is something that can be. But so now you can't have rosin mixed with this suntan oil or whatever because that can be made into a sticky substance. It's all a question of what they will allow. And what this is the fact that they saw the game going to circa 1968. and it's but the thing is the problem with the game right now is not the dominant pitching, it's the fact that everybody's trying to hit the ball 6,000 feet. That's the problem.
That's the biggest problem.
Right.
So, The one concern I have, and I don't even know if it's still like this or not, but back in my previous life when I was a baseball writer, when you went into a dugout, you were always at risk to get pine tar somewhere on your on your pants or whatever, and that would cost you a 10-game suspension if you're a pitcher. Like,
really?
Like how could they walk in it? Now, again, I don't know. Maybe the way they station the bats now is different. I don't know, but I remember, when you're a baseball writer, you'd go through the dugout to get onto the field for batting practice. And I was always amazed that no matter what I did, if I walked through the dugout, I'd come out and I'd have pine tar somewhere.
Wow. I'd only been through the dugout a couple times, but I had seen it for sure.
Kevin, how tough is that to get out? Or you have to basically get a new pair of pants?
It's hard to get out. No.
I was going to say.
Yeah,
that's gotta be tough to get out.
That was Michael Pineda's excuse. He walked through the dugout and he got this mound of pine tar that was about the size of New Jersey on the back of his neck.
Well, I'm not buying that, but I would buy that it would be on your pants if you're going through.
Now,
and the stuff and all the like chewing tobacco on your shoes, man, must have been gross in those dugouts.
Now, let me just say briefly before we get started. I went to my first major league game.
Oh yeah,
last weekend against the Astros and came out hoarse because I was screaming and yelling at Jose Altuve. This time I was screaming for a different reason. It was Yankees and Blue Jays. And okay, I've been to enough Leaf Sabres games in my life to see when a fan base invades a stadium or an arena. And I've seen it where it was basically 85-15 Leafs Sabres in their own building. I've never seen it the way it was yesterday. And I don't know what the official attendance was.
I can tell you, Michael, from when the Yankees were in town for 2 games in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The Yankee fans travel extremely well. They definitely outnumbered Philadelphia Phillies fans.
Well,
they're everywhere too. They don't just travel well; they're everywhere.
It wasn't outnumbered. It was all. Yeah. It was. I mean, Mike Harrington in the Buffalo News said Toronto fans who live in Buffalo must have stayed home because, first of all, it was the ticket prices. The ticket prices were ridiculous. Second of all, I don't know how many people are getting a chance to go to New York City for a Yankees game. But if it was 11,000 people at the stadium yesterday, I'd say 10,500 were Yankees fans.
Yeah, I think they said it was 7,100 or something like that.
So it's about 6,500 Yankee fans.
There must be season ticket holders, though. I mean, what did they just sell their tickets? They thought everybody made some money on it, right?
I mean, you also have, again, a part of the season where a chunk of the season was played down in Dunedin, Florida.
Right.
There's not, if you're expecting some sort of a connection between Buffalo and Toronto, I mean, it's the Bison who they'll have their connection with.
Yeah, we saw that finale, if you remember, at the Winter Classic when the Maple Leafs and the Red Wings were playing. That was in the middle of a huge recession. Like one of every third house in Michigan had a foreclosure sign on it. And Canadians were willing to pay incredible prices. And it got to the point where people just felt like they had to take the money.
Yeah.
And that stadium, people said it was 50-50. There's no way. I thought
it was more. It was more
3/4 Maple Leafs fans because they had money and people in Michigan did not. But you could get, $500, $1,000 for your Winter Classic tickets and like that. And people, so many. I heard so many people that I knew say, "Well, I had tickets, but when the Canadians started offering like $1,000, we had to take them."
What can you do? Right?
It's a lost art, and I'll fold this into what when we discuss Tampa Bay and the Islanders. It's a lost art to appreciate radio broadcasts. I'm still somebody who likes to listen to radio broadcasts, even if I'm live at a game. And yesterday, I listened to the Yankee broadcast with Susan Waldman and John Sterling, who've been doing it for years.
Did it work, Mike, timing wise? Like I tried radio broadcasts don't work anymore. Is that what you're getting to?
That was the problem. It was like, it's one thing if you're home and you can delay the cable and match it up. Here, this guy Chris Gittins hits a home run, his first career home run, and I'm listening to John Sterling talking about Broadway opening up. And it was like a minute and a half later before he goes, Chris Chris Big hitting Gittins with the home run. It was anticlimactic because
I'm chuckling right now because again, Chris Gittins was played a long time, quite a few seasons for the Trenton Thunder, and I've been to enough Trenton Thunder games. So the minute you mention his name, I got a smile on my face.
Mike, I know
he was their big hitter.
And Anthony, this is how clueless. I like Susan Waldman, but this is how clueless Susan Waldman was. She says, "Well, he was like 0 for 14 in the major leagues." She's like, "Well, that was his first hit. Oh, he must be comfortable hitting in this ballpark. He may have played here last year. Excuse me, the minor leagues were completely shut down last year, and he had never been above Double-A for this year. And they didn't play. They didn't play Triple-A games in Buffalo this year, Susan. So what are you talking about?"
Well, this just started. This started this year, Mike, because I am one of my little tricks that I've done for years at hockey games is in preseason games or early in the season when I don't know all the players on the other's team that well, and I'm still learning who's who. I've always brought a little transistor radio with me and then popped it in my ear just so I could listen to the broadcast. It just helps you because it's really just one of those things that I don't have to look down and see whose number that thing for the many players that are playing.
Yeah, the only thing is that I would not have been able to pick up WFAN on a transistor radio out of New York because it's out of New York, and I would have been able to pick up Fan 590 out of Toronto from where I was.
So if you go to NHL.com or the NHL app and listen to it like that. Yeah. That's always been delayed, so that's fine. So you have to have a radio. So, but so then now that all radios are most of the stuff's on FM, FM's in HD radio now. If you just tune into an FM radio, it's on HD radio, right, and an FM transistor thing, and that's delayed too. So you can't get any. It's really frustrating. Anyway, let's move on. Yep. Here we go. But let's start. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, June 16th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and I'm not pissed off.
No, my goodness.
I'm Anthony Mingioni, and I'm happy for Michael.
Wes Cohen from Sportsology, and look for my Kindle Vella Tales from the NHL Draft Story series that will probably start coming out on Saturday. You can get it on the app or at Amazon.com.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Allen. I just have nothing to add to all that.
You do have a really good article we're going to get into, Kevin. And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in the comings going in the hockey world. And before we get into last night, and then subsequently tonight, we have a little bit of news kind of stuff flying around today. I wanted to just do a quick run around the league. There is a big rumor now. I don't know if it's official yet. Has the Brind'Amour Moore thing been announced? But it looks like Carolina and Brind'Amour Moore are very close to actually announcing something.
Hasn't been announced yet, but
that's what I heard. And
direction's pointing that way. Yes.
Yeah, it's pointing that way. And I talked to a source of mine, and Ron Francis did obviously talk to Brind'Amour Moore, which you kind of would assume he would have, because Brind'Amour Moore is a free agent now, right? So you could talk to him, and that's at least we said. That's at least I heard. But yeah, Brind'Amour Moore, and like you had said, Kevin, all along, this is going to get done. It really looks like it is. Yeah,
I mean, the only issue at the end was apparently there were some issues that Rod didn't heard that some of his people that worked with him weren't getting paid or something had happened to him, and he wanted to make sure that was all cleared up. That's at least the rounds that that heard. But all along, I mean, it was pretty clear it was going to happen. He wanted to stay there. He's lived there since he's retired. He was building a new house. As I said, I joked about it, but it was all true. He'd picked out carpeting. I mean, he's not a guy that was intending to leave. He's very comfortable there. He likes the relationship that he has with ownership, with Don Waddell. He likes the team a lot. So he really just didn't have interest, and people wanted to make it about the money. And they were willing to pay him, probably not as much as he could have gotten elsewhere, but it is significant. Yeah, this is great news for Carolina fans. Obviously, this is what they wanted. Brind'Amour Moore has been an amazing coach. He is the Carolina Hurricanes for all intents and purposes. To a lot of fans, like Rod Brind'Amour Moore is the Carolina Hurricanes. He's a captain that raised the cup above his head, for crying out loud. He's the guy, and has been an incredible coach. No two ways about it, right? Was he the captain there, or was Stahl the captain there? Am I wrong about that?
No, Brind'Amour Moore was the captain.
There's one other element to it too that I haven't really talked about, but a lot of coaches want to be a centerpiece. They want to be involved in the decision making and all that kind of stuff. Rod doesn't want anything to do with that. So he wants to be the coach. He wants to leave everything else to the management, and that's his thing. And I think his popularity there is also something he really appreciates. He just likes his life there.
Yeah, and and you can blame him. I mean, and Rod probably, if they ever needed an extra player, could still play. I mean, Rod's ridiculous. The in shapeoveness of Rod Brindamore is off the charts. It's ridiculous. Like, and the players in the bubble. I remember the players in the bubble joking about it when they had one of those behind the scenes thing on the NHL Network, and they were out there playing like frisbee football or something like that in the Toronto
pickleball.
Right, wherever they were playing,
BMO field, yeah.
They were all saying that, Brindamore, just look at the guy, like he's out without his shirt on, like throwing frisbees around. He's like, he's always been a ridiculous workout fiend, but my God.
And they're so close. The thing is, Carolina's close. They're really close. They're a net, consistent net minder away. I think
if they could only get a net minder less.
Exactly, and that falls under the auspices of the general manager to make that move, or to hope, if they're trying to develop Alex Nedeljkovic, that he can take that next step. But they're close, and I don't blame Brindamore for wanting to stay put with the relationship that he has and the team that he has, to have to kind of be that close, and then to maybe step into an expansion situation with Seattle, which again, Vegas has been, let's face it, most cases, Vegas has been the outlier compared to most expansion teams. But
by far,
but in this current era, with cap era, that could very well, you never know. Seattle
happen again.
Could have that success. But again, if it's close, if it isn't that far off money wise, then I would say that I think in this case, the sure thing, there's more of a sure thing in Carolina.
Yeah, there is, and it's really, it is really like it makes a ton of sense. And and the other thing that people have to remember too is Carolina is actually a very reasonable place to live. Like it's of all the places you can live in the NHL, it's one of the more it's one of the cheaper places to live. It just is. It's not, and if you're making the kind of money Brindamore's making there, it's different. Like Seattle's
it's not well vaccinated, but otherwise you're right.
Right, Seattle's way more expensive to live in Seattle, for example, or it's way more expensive.
That's just the way it is.
So anyway, the other news today comes from our buddy Myrtle in up north, who is coming out and saying that writes for the Athletic, of course. James Myrtle used to. I remember forever I've known James Myrtle. I brought him on to XM years ago when he was just a blogger, and he is today saying that Zach Hyman has apparently played himself out of Toronto by his talents and by his skills. He's going to want more money than the Leafs are willing to pay. I did a little research on this. Then, Mike, I want to hear your opinion on it. But the research I did on it, I got some people to tell me the same sorts of things. But I really got the impression that this was more of like a spin machine that was happening. That what's happening here is both Toronto first of all knows how important Zach Hyman is. They like you guys were saying, he stirs the drink, and he does. He might not be the superstar, but he is the guy who keeps the superstars balanced and keeps everything running. And he's the guy who digs out of the corners. He's that guy, and he's important. And the Leafs know that, obviously. So they're not. And then from Hyman's perspective, there's no better situation he could be in. I mean, he's in the perfect spot to play and the perfect team to play. So, but you don't want to be taken for granted. Like if you're Zach Hyman, you don't want to say like, they know that he knows that, he knows that they know that. You don't want to come in really low. So I think what's happening here is a little bit of like, show me a little love.
And I think the Leafs are willing to show him a little love, just not a lot of love, because if they stick with their, what their perceived, philosophy was after the season-ending media availabilities, we're not going to touch the core four. Then you're locked into sort of nickel and diming Hyman on a long-term extension. I mean, you can do a number of things. You can extend the term to 6 or 7 years. You can load it with signing bonus early on, but they're probably limited to probably around $4.5 to $5 million at the most on Hyman. And Hyman might, in a market where there is not a lot of teams out there with a lot of cap space, but a team like Detroit, where, he played with Dylan Larkin at Michigan, maybe they would be willing to pay more because they have a lot of cap space, or teams like Buffalo or Ottawa or New Jersey. They have lots of cap space. The Leafs don't if they stick with that philosophy. Again, I believe that they pumped up the value and they backed the core four because they had to. Because what are you going to do? Slam all the guys that lost that were primarily responsible for losing the series against Montreal? No, you're going to say we believe in those guys. But if they get an offer for a William Nylander, I think they would address it. They would possibly take it because they have more than Zach Hyman to worry about over the next couple of years. They have to sign Morgan Riley, and I don't see them being able to add a number one defenseman like Morgan Riley in free agency over the next couple of years. So that's why I continue to believe. Now, I talked to somebody and they said it makes too much sense for Hyman in Toronto. It makes too much. Dubas knows the value of Zach Hyman. When Zach Hyman before he was at Michigan, when he was basically at almost draft age, his advisor was Kyle Dubas.
Right.
Kyle Dubas was the one who suggested they trade with Florida for his draft rights when he was after his senior year at Michigan. He was his general manager with the Marlies. He knows how good and how integral Zach Hyman is to this Leafs team, and how every line played better when Zach Hyman was on it. So do I think he wants to stay in Toronto? Yes. Do I think the Leafs want to bring him back? Yes. It's a question of how much. And then this whole thing is, sort of dickering back and forth to see how much he can get. And I think in the end they'll pay him.
It's like any other year, Mike. It's like if someone out there says, "Hey, we'll give Zach Hyman 6.5," then that's when you have a problem. But if nobody does that, he probably does go back.
Right, and other teams might float it out there because what do they want to do? They want to drive the price up on Toronto. If Toronto is paying Zach Hyman $5.5 million, then that's probably $750,000 more that they won't be able to spend on other players in other situations. So of course, it's in their interest to drive up the price on Hyman.
Right. All right, now Kevin, I want to get to you on the NHL summer trade market stronger than usual article you wrote on Monday night, because I really enjoyed this one a lot, and a lot of people did too. I got a lot of comments about it. People in the chat room were talking about it, and I guess the big name is Jack Eichel, right? And and Jack Eichel's not on your list.
I just didn't put him on because I don't know what they're going to do, and I really didn't. It didn't seem at that point. Since I've written that in the last 48 hours, it's pretty clear they're going to trade him. So
you think it is clear they're going to trade him? Do you really think that now?
I do, and I think they've really moved along on it. I mean, I've heard through the grapevine. I actually tried to call you last night to tell you about what I had heard, but there are people within the organization who believe they have deals in place that will give them another top 10 pick.
Right.
That tells us who they're thinking. They're thinking Columbus, Anaheim, which are.
I was told Columbus is a legit contender. In this.
Yeah, well, so is Anaheim as well. Although I don't think they have the pieces. I'm actually going to write about this as soon as we get off of the.
You don't think Anaheim does? Or you don't think
Anaheim is the third overall pick?
Yeah, but they don't have anything else.
No,
that's the problem.
It would probably be something like Adam Henrique, or because
they're not going to take Adam Henrique. At least if they're smart, they're not going to. But I think it'll have to be like Raquel or something.
I mean, they have Zegras and Drysdale, but they're probably not going to
trade.
No.
How about Seattle?
That's going to happen. But Seattle was the original first one that I heard that it was going to be the number 2 pick, and then they were going to agree to some. Whatever we get, you get this pick and that pick. So I think all of them are in it, but I don't think Seattle is as attractive as Anaheim because they know their pieces they're getting with those.
Right.
Now, how would Jack view Columbus? Do you think
Columbus has got a lot they can offer?
No, they can offer. I'm kind of wondering though, in terms of how Jack would view it going from the situation in Buffalo.
He has no control.
He doesn't in this circumstance, but I'm just kind of curious.
Before I would have said that he would, he's got Werenski there, who I'm sure he knows. It's the one thing about American players is they like other American players. Like most of the American players know each other. Like I know that's hard to believe.
No, they really do.
But they've come up through the system. A lot of them played together at the national development team. They've been at festivals. So they do know each other. So
junior teams,
especially the American college players. I've noticed they really.
Well, I just think it's Americans just in general. I mean, even the guys that go over not as well, but guys that jump to Canada, they've been at festivals and stuff. So anyway, but Seth Jones is leaving, so that's a negative for Eichel, or so it seems as well. But I think Columbus can offer a lot. They've got 3 first-round picks.
Right.
They've got the 5th pick in the draft.
Right.
They've got some other players that they could move that could help Buffalo immediately. They've got some other defensemen. Like if I could get a top 5 pick and I'm Buffalo, then I start. I'm going to get power. I've got Rasmus Dahlin. I start selling on the idea of, okay, I get another defenseman at 5. Now I've built I've got the makings of an exceptional defense.
For sure.
And maybe that's what I sell.
You can definitely get another defenseman at 5. That won't be a problem.
Does that change your away from power if you do this, though? That's what my thought is. Do you go away from power?
No.
They're going with power. There's no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even if you have to wait for power a year, what we've learned in the semifinals this year with all the teams having big, rangy, talented defenses, I mean, the opportunity to add power to Dahlin, to Samuelson, to Will Borgen, they have a lot of good young defensemen. It makes total sense for them, even if they have to wait a year for power.
Yeah, and I think they'll be waiting a year. I do.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's fine. But because
he said that, so I guess we'll have to take him at his word.
But
even other players are assuming that too, Kat, that I've interviewed. So,
but Pierre LeBrun listed L.A., Minnesota, Anaheim, Columbus, the Rangers, obviously, and Philadelphia. And this, ironically, he didn't list Boston because, and I talked to a couple people about this, the Sabres will never trade Jack Eichel to Boston. And Russ, when we talked this morning,
I don't think they're trading him to the Rangers.
It doesn't matter because Boston doesn't have
to
make the trade. Like, it's not even if you look at cap friendly, you say to yourself, well, I don't even going to consider Boston. There's no way that they have anything that works.
Well,
I talked to a couple people about Philadelphia, and they kind of laughed about it. They said that's not.
I think the reason why Philadelphia is being included in the conversation is because of the prospects and system. That's probably the things that they are probably.
Yeah, but that's not where they want to go. It's not where they want to go.
If you're Buffalo, and this is you think back to Ryan O'Reilly. And I remember writing specifically like this. I said, this is a really bad decision to trade him.
Right.
And especially when, they were going to try to get prospects. Like, you got no idea whether prospects are going to be good. You think you do, but you don't.
Right.
And they had a proven player in O'Reilly, and you knew what he was. The
chatter around Buffalo right now is that they didn't say specifically for Eichel. Because, this is the thing. They're talking Reinhart, Ristolainen, and Eichel in one off season.
Yeah, I had heard Reinhart, yeah.
And the speculation is that that top first-round pick that they'd be getting in a deal could be for somebody like Reinhart, because Reinhart is, 25 years old. He's played center.
There is a team in the North Division that wants to trade for Reinhart. They do.
Yeah.
It goes beyond that. There are more people interested in Reinhart than Eichel.
Because he's healthy.
Yeah, exactly, and he's not going to cost them as much.
Right. And he's a center. Right? He plays some remember
he wants to play center. Yeah, for sure.
And he's done better at center. Columbus is desperate for centers. That's what Columbus wants. Obviously, Eichel's center too. So it's not. When I was doing my research 2 days ago about this, and I was trying to follow because I heard LeBron reporting, I heard all these people reporting. I kept getting the same thing. I kept getting Reinhardt's name. Maybe it's because, like you say, Kevin, more people are interested in Reinhart, but I kept getting Reinhardt's name being mentioned more than Eichel's name. Now, maybe that has changed in the last 2 days, I guess.
I think that there's interest in both of them, and but Eichel's name is really kind of heated up, and there's a lot of teams that are interested, but I think they've kind of narrowed it down. They know what they want. They really want another early draft pick. Apparently, that's what the rumor is, and they've settled on that. And from the other Columbus position as well that we haven't talked about, but we all. It's the elephant in the room is they haven't been able to keep anybody. Well, they don't have to worry about that anymore. They got Eichel signed forever. Good or bad, he's be theirs.
Well,
And
since Sportsnet 650 seems to have the question on there, what I heard is that Vancouver's interested in Reinhart. He's from there.
Yeah.
So he may have an interest in signing with them long term. He may.
Well, here's the thing about Eichel and Columbus. Eichel is a college hockey player. Did love college hockey. Even and Ohio State, of course. Columbus is a college hockey town. I could see Eichel fitting in Columbus. I could see him being one of the players who's okay with that situation. It is a very good.
Depends what the team's like, Eck. I mean, he doesn't have a choice.
Russ is absolutely right. He's made it clear that he wants to win.
Yeah,
and that's the only thing he seems to want to talk about.
He has to have some idea, some inkling of the direction of the team. It has to be something that's attractive to him. Roslovich is a fellow American, is also from Columbus. You've got Line A potentially who could play on his wing. They could potentially be an outstanding 1-2 punch together.
Yeah.
To me, Columbus makes sense, but if it's about winning and winning sooner, Columbus may or may not be necessarily the option that he'd be looking for.
And a trade with Columbus, as William in the chat says, I think any trade with Columbus would include one of the two goaltenders, because right now the Sabres do not have a goaltender signed for next year. It's right now their number one goalie would be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and
get one of the goalies. Get either like Foodie or Chinnikov. You're going to have to get one of those, and then get at least two first.
Yeah, I was going to write that.
Cool.
That the goalie for sure. They need to get a goalie, and they're willing to trade one. Although I think the hockey world, and I could be wrong on this because I didn't ask anybody, but don't you have the impression that they see their goalies as equal, and the rest of the hockey world is only fascinated with Merzlikins? Like that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I think that's changed, because I think 2 years ago they were high on Korpisalo. Everybody kind of was. And then I think that's cooled off, but it doesn't mean he can't do well somewhere else.
Until Merzlikins had that long streak in January until he took over when Korpisalo got hurt, but then Korpisalo played great in the playoffs.
Right.
Any trade. The important thing for the Sabres, just like with other teams that are in smaller markets, they have to get players like Columbus. They have to get players under contract in return for these players, especially Eichel. Like a Reinhart deal, maybe they have to take somebody back like a Beagle or a Roussel to balance out the money because they have so much cap space. But they better get somebody who's controllable for long term, because they can't sign free agents. They don't want to come here.
Yeah, I can tell you this. The Flyers, when I talked to them today, the name that they said made the most sense with Buffalo for them would be Ristolainen, and that's the guy that they would like to grab. And he's on your list, Kevin, too.
And the Lance Lasowski, who covers the Sabres for the Buffalo News, reported yesterday that the Devils are interested in Ristolainen. You're going to find a lot of teams, because he's a 1-year contract at $5.4 million. He's a right-handed D, and I think he's been misserved by playing in Buffalo over the last few years. I think he's a lot better than a lot of people think he is. He's the reverse of the analytics darling. He's who they post up on the wall and throw darts at.
Well, if you go all the way back to pre-COVID, the Flyers had interest in him then too, and they were really that.
Honestly, you can go back to draft day.
Yeah,
you can go back to his draft day.
I remember the trade deadline. The Flyers felt like they were kind of close to getting him at the trade deadline pre-COVID, like right before that hit. If you remember, the trade deadline was a couple weeks before COVID hit, and that was something that they really felt like. So yeah, that's something I think. Yandel's on your list too, Kevin. He's an interesting one for sure. Yeah,
I don't know how people are going to feel about that. The contract is just past that point where it's movable. He's still got some offensive ability, but boy. But he controls it all. He has the no movement. But why would you want to be, where the coach doesn't appreciate what you offer? He was a big factor last year for them too. Although at times he was horrible. He is so inconsistent. You'll see him make defensive plays that just baffle you, but then he'll also score a really big goal.
That's the career of Keith Yandel.
The one thing I can see happening is he's very popular, as you know. With teammates. I could see somebody who has played with him before going to other guys saying, you got to get this guy. He's a good offensive guy, and
And it's only a 2-year commitment.
And there's one place I think that could play into, Kevin. I think you're absolutely right on that. I know he wants to. Apparently, when I talked to people last year, the only team he would waive to go to was Boston. That was it, and he was solid about that. But there is a player out there who fits that category really well, and he's rising the ranks a little bit in Arizona, and that is Shane Doan, who played with him, right? And Shane Doan apparently loves Keith Yandel. Just absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, they're buddies. Yeah.
So
let's put it this way: half of the Arizona defense are unrestricted free agents. They rebuild their defense. So
they can afford them. They definitely can.
Yeah. So like Goligoski, Armisen,
can help them lose as well as anybody else could help them lose.
Yeah. One thing is I watched a lot of Arizona games, so I don't know why, but my impression is that their offense was as bad as it was in the previous season, but it was actually improved last season. And depending on who their coach is going to be, maybe
that's what I was going to say. It'll be improved under, and then it's going to be like a fill in the blank.
Well, it won't be improved when they trade their best player in Connor Garland, because they're going to trade him because they need draft picks.
I don't know. I mean, do you actually know that from?
No, I don't know
people, or because I keep seeing that, but I've never seen any. Even an unnamed source quoted. It's almost like people are speculating that
his name has been in the wind for too long for it.
I've seen it, yeah, for sure.
I can see it at the draft, Kev. I just think they have so many other things going on that it's probably there is not going to be anything circulating because they still got to hire a coach.
Yeah,
I mean, I did hear his name from a GM last year that it was out there, that it wasn't an untouchable, that he had discussed it. But but it's a lot. They wanted a heck of a lot for him. Garland, Garland is not cheap at all. They know how good he is. It's not like you're going to sneak Garland out of there.
Everybody knows
that was basically the thing. You're not going to sneak him out of there. So yeah, you might be able to get him, but it was a lot. It was way more than the person I was talking to was willing to pay for.
The ability to maximize their value is already passed on April 12th, because he was a $750,000 or $775,000 cap. And they probably could have gotten 2 or 3 draft picks for him, and they didn't. Maybe they didn't think the return was enough. Now he's arbitration eligible, and after the year he had, he's probably going to make $3 million. And then teams that think he's such a bargain, they may still think he's a bargain, but he's not as much making $3 million.
Well, if I'm in charge of the Coyotes and I could get 3 draft picks for them, unless they're all first-round picks, I'm not even going to be the least bit tempted.
Well, they do need a first-round pick, as we know.
Yeah, he's a good player. Like I wouldn't. You need to get a good return for him.
If I'm Yarmo, I give up one of my 3 firsts for Connor Garland, because
Yarmo's in on Eichel, so they're not going to be talking about that one until they lose out on Eichel or get Eichel.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point.
I'll tell you one more funny thing, because we haven't talked about it. Well, maybe you did when I wasn't around, but isn't it hilarious that Phil Kessel ended up with 20 goals this year in a 56-game season? Like, it's crazy. 20 goals in a 56-game.
He's a savant. I mean, you saw the picture of him. He is every man. He's not in perfect shape. He's not the greatest skater, but he plays hockey. He knows the game.
Oh, Michael, right to the hot dogs.
He's just a flat-out finisher, like he just finishes. He finishes
20 goals.
Yeah, he goes to
games. Yeah.
He obviously puts himself in the right spot all the time. He's great at positioning, because he's not fast, but he's great at positioning. He's not slow, but he's not super fast. I mean,
I remembered I interviewed him at the World Juniors before he was drafted, and my initial and I remember writing a big article about Kessel, because I was like, man, this guy's reputation's amazing. This guy could score. And then when you interviewed him, you realize he's just a different kind of guy. He probably trains different. He does everything different, but he can score. He can score.
The thing I always remember.
What no one seemed to understand is like Phil Kessel's shy.
Yeah, he's a little shy. Yeah,
he's real shy, and he really just is not comfortable, in the spotlight. So, and I think people sort of miscast him as a malcontent as opposed to.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah. I'll tell you the best story, and this fills that perfectly, Kevin. This is exactly what you're saying. My favorite Kessel story was when we were in Washington at that pre-Olympic thing. where the Kessel, Kessel was part of that team. We're down there at the pre-Olympic thing, and I remember going. It was at one of these arenas that had 2 arenas, and there was youth hockey going on in the other arena, and there were people around, and they were mulling around, stuff, that kind of thing. And I go downstairs, and I see some guys playing like ball hockey on the rug, like on their knees. And who's down there with them but Phil Kessel playing with these kids? He's down there playing with these kids, ball hockey, just and having a blast. He's cracking up, he's laughing. They think it's the greatest thing in the world. They're playing with him, and he's just loving it. And it's like that to me is like that kind of epitomizes Phil Kessel. He doesn't want to be talking to the media. He wants to just be hanging out, talking to these guys, talking to these kids. He was literally playing with the kids.
What happened in Toronto showed that he didn't like talking to the media, but he scores goals with relish.
Well, Toronto's not an easy place to talk to the media either. So, I mean, that's a crazy situation. All right, let's get last night's game because, man, a lot of controversy behind this one.
Let me start off with this because I didn't see it until this morning. I was as I was
talking. Bigger than the refs, Mike.
As I was mentioning before, I was at the game and I was listening to the radio broadcast of Dave Mishkin and Phil Esposito, which is always entertaining.
Yeah.
And Phil it was basically like Nagasaki in the radio booth when Pelech pushes point into Varlamov. I didn't realize how ridiculous this call on.
Oh, it was just
until I saw it this morning. I mean, I'm sorry, he projectiled point into Varlamov.
Yeah,
this was not like Corey Perry sort of like, oh, I'll just bump into the goal.
No,
thrown into him. And I mean,
must be a Sorokin fan, Mike. That's all I could think of. Pelech.
Right.
I mean, that's crazy. Why would you do that? I mean, Varlamov is it was an awful call, but a terrible play too. Like really, seriously, a terrible play.
It was to break up a play. That's what he was doing.
Yeah, but you're risking the entire season by throwing him into your goalie like that. I mean, you really are. I mean, legitimately, Lord, what? I mean, and it was a horrible call.
It was,
but not the only horrible call.
Because, no, it wasn't the only one.
No.
Because and again in that, so then the too many men on the ice goal for the Lightning. Now, granted, it had nothing to do with the goal, and I think that's what needs to be mentioned. Like that there it could have been 20 guys on there. They were all by the bench. Right. It didn't matter, but still, this is the kind of thing to me that frustrates the hell out of me in the NHL because it's so simple to fix. And why don't we have a 30-second replay after every goal that's reviewed in the playoffs?
Games would take 5 hours.
No, it wouldn't, because it didn't take long to figure this out. Most goals,
it would be like reviewing the Zapruder film. I'm telling you, you're going to get. Most
goals are obvious. Most goals are obvious, Anthony. But if you see something that's suspicious like this, then you're sure it takes time.
You know what they could do? They could have like almost like a beeper on them, or just on their phone, get a text from Toronto the minute that play happened while they're getting ready to get into the next play. They get a quick text and it says, "We've reviewed it. It's not that, it's this." They could do that, and it wouldn't take any time at all. They don't need to review it there. Toronto sees everything.
Right, like a button.
But what you can't see everything. I'm with you. There has to be some human error left in the game. Otherwise, it's always going to be confusing. Like, how long do they wait? For make sure that Toronto's not going to call them.
I think the thing would be, if Toronto contacts you, then they contact you. If they don't,
but then the thing would be, if you'd have waited 15 more seconds, you would have seen it. So
it's really simple though. I mean, you're in Toronto, a goal scored, bam, immediately it reverses 30 seconds, and you play the last 30 seconds through a couple angles. Everyone's looking at it.
Is this only for the playoffs, or is this for the regular season?
I'm even willing to just say for the playoffs.
Because you have 14 games going on a Thursday.
Right. But like, especially when you get to
this point. Make an argument if we're in a playoff race and there's two teams that are real close, and that call happens during the regular season, and you're only going to do it in the playoffs. We're opening up Pandora's box.
Doesn't the NFL have something? Doesn't the NFL do something like this just for the playoffs?
No.
No. I thought there was but the NFL does have, like, in the last 2 minutes of a game that.
But that's every game, playoffs or not.
They're automatically reviewed.
Yeah.
I mean, so like to me, this is just
but
one of those
penalties,
things.
It's only scoring chances. It's only scoring chances and first downs.
Right. I'm not. But this. Yeah. But there's two things that are easily determinable right away. One is if the puck goes out of like play and hits like the netting and comes back in. We've seen that happen. That's something that you should be able to fix immediately, because that you might not have seen it. And the other is too many men on the ice. They're just crazy, obvious things that you see immediately. So why can't I mean,
if they want to change the rule to include that, I think I could go for that. But you can't just have it open ended where whatever they see,
right,
that will take too long.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So,
each team.
These are not subjective things. That's what I'm saying. Like these are not
video.
These are not,
whoa. Each team has a video review component to them. If you do like the NFL, where you have, and maybe it won't be a red flag you throw onto the ice, but if they have time to review before play starts, they could appeal to Toronto to get them to overturn a call. Maybe you could do that, but you can't have Toronto being, the arbiter of every play that goes on. To
if you want to get it right, you could, but I'm not talking about getting every. I'm not talking about every play. I'm not talking about every play though. They wouldn't do it on every.
No,
play.
Not every play. But if let's put this thing this way. Like I'm okay if they say, okay, add too many men on the ice to the other one. Okay, now we're looking for two things. But if you say review every scoring play, and if there's something wrong with it, let them know. If some guy punches somebody behind the play, if he knocks them down early, do you call that? I mean, it's still going to be subjective.
It is. No, it's still going to be subjective. But here's another one: hand pass Pavelski. That's another one that was easily determinable immediately upon review. Remember that goal?
Right.
And to me, there are things that are not. These aren't judgment calls. He hand passed it to him. It's not a judgment call if there's 7 people on the ice. It's not a judgment call if it hits his netting. Like, just find the non-judgment situations, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, but that's different from where you started out.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, you're right. But to me, this is like, but I think that maybe that's the place it has to be. It has to be looked at. Maybe it will be, but the Islanders, at the same time, like I said, it didn't mean anything in the goal. It didn't matter. The Islanders fans can't sit back and complain about it really, because honestly, it just.
Let's talk about this. And I didn't look up how many power plays Tampa had last night. I'll check it after I get done blabbering. But the fact, and Russ and I talked about this, the Islanders act of after the whistle and the cheap shots that they've been doing throughout the first 2 series, especially against Boston, they out-Bostoned Boston, which I didn't think was possible. And in this series, the radio broadcast, they were going banana, going nuts when Yanni Gord had his helmet ripped off and then he got punched in the face, and there was no, talk about inconsistent refereeing. When a guy gets cold cocked, has his helmet taken off, and there's no call. Okay, then you can't complain when somebody else takes a baseball swing with a stick at somebody's head. I mean,
it got to the point where. And I'm surprised Trotz didn't try and calm his guys down, but he really needed to. And he really needed to get the Islanders track to actually playing instead of trying to do something after every whistle, because it derailed them after a while.
Yeah, it really did. It did. And then
Tampa's better offensively. We know that. They're more talented. So the worst thing you can do is keep going to that part of your game and keep doing that, and then eventually get a couple penalties called against you, and Tampa's power play will kill you. Like, it's just it's not a smart way of playing. I get you have to challenge every inch, but you don't have to elbow somebody in the face every inch.
And what's interesting about this as well, of course, we know in Game 1 they had Ross Johnston right across, from Killorn, and it was sort of the threat of that, and it didn't quite plan out that way. Whereas in this game, there was a bit more of that without Johnston being in the lineup, and things just went off the track.
I mean, look, perfect example too. You can't be a bigger jerk than Patrick Maroon. If the Islanders try, even if Matt Martin tries, he can't do it. Trust me, Pat Maroon's got that game, part of his game down pat. So if that's the guy you're taking off the ice, you're not winning that.
Yeah, it's true. It also did occur to me yesterday when we were talking about, like, or 2 days ago, we were talking about the whole thing with Kucherov and the extra, and we were talking who would they have lost, and Kevin said, it would have been Palat. Palat's right. I was watching him score 2 goals last night. It just was it was burrowing into my head. It's like, they would have lost Palat, who was Kucherov set up for 2 beautiful goals last night.
But Braden
couldn't have been clearer what is happening there.
Yeah, Braden Point's heating up too, and that is a problem for the Islanders too, because if Point is on, he could be as good as Barzal. And that's a problem for the Islanders too. So
what struck me, but beyond all the controversy, because there was plenty of it last night, what struck me is that, I really appreciated how the Islanders have played in the first two series, and Tampa Bay has played hard as well. And when I realized that when both teams are playing at a high level, Tampa just has a little bit of advantage with the skill level.
They do.
They have more guys who can, break through the no room and maybe get the shot or maybe score a goal, and and they're just more experienced. Like that's the advantage in this series.
They had the Islanders out there, Kev, for like 2 minutes on one shift.
Yeah,
2 minutes.
Yeah,
and Andy Green looked like he was going to pass out. I mean,
yeah. No, yeah. I know. Like the Islanders have really played well.
They have.
They have, and in my, I do have the Islanders still winning the series, and I do think this is going to be a back and forth. I'm not sure it's going to, especially once it goes to the Coliseum. I think it's going to get very interesting. How do the Islanders handle sort of what's going to be how do they handle that level of crazy energy and all the emotion? And if they can harness it and use it to their advantage and play the game that's made them successful thus far in the playoffs, I still think that they have a very good chance of these. But when you get into the skill areas, absolutely, I would agree with you there, Kevin. Especially this is where you're missing Anders Lee, who could potentially battle with some of those big defensemen up front.
No, it's huge. It's huge.
Tampa, that's where you kind of look at it and say, Palmieri's good, but he's not Anderson.
But I think that the Islanders have to be concerned about actually getting too whipped up, too emotional.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. They have to harm. It's going to be again. I've seen it with Islander fans trying to get tickets. The struggle that they've had with Ticketmaster, for trying to get in. Anybody who's in that arena, it's going to be absolutely deafening. But it can turn against you if things go the wrong way.
Yeah, you have Clark Gillies and Zach Wilson and the Jets offensive line all crushing beer cans on their heads. It does whip you into a frenzy. It's like you have to play.
This time it was Greg Van Rotten, Mike. Get it right.
Speaking of talent,
he's the one who's been getting all these tickets, by the way.
Speaking of talent, it's really important that the Islanders get Wallstrom back soon. Like that, in my opinion, he needs to be back in that lineup because he is probably their best.
The extent of his injury, that's the problem.
We don't know, and hopefully, if there's any hope that he comes back, he's a difference maker in this series. He's their best pure shooter that they have.
If he comes back and he's relatively healthy, if he comes back at 40%, we've seen players that are coming back and being in the lineup and they're a shadow of their former selves.
He took warm-ups yesterday, so that's
we'll
my see. My anticipation is I think we'll see. But if he's taking warm-ups,
he's in.
He's getting close.
He's getting close. We might see him in game. We might see him in game 3.
If he's that close and you're in an important position in game 3. Now, a really funny moment last night in the broadcast came when they were showing Jeff Petrie's glove. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but like they were showing, Jeff Petrie's probably still though they made a commitment, right? Whether he's playing tonight, but you get the feeling he is, right? So they're showing Petrie's glove, which is this enormous, has this enormous thing from his 2 fingers here. And, he's playing with, he looks like he can handle his stick with it. He's a very important player. They need him back. And they're showing this glove and Keith Jones is commenting on it. And Keith Jones is saying, I'm just saying, Jeff, you better be like 90% okay, because if you're not okay when you're playing with that glove, you're wearing a big ass target on your hand there.
Yeah, that's a funny point for Jones. Honestly, if he's going to replace Romanov, I would keep Petrie out. I would.
Yeah, Jonesy kept saying, "There's no way that you're not going to get whacked and whacked and whacked and whacked and whacked.
No,
so you better be okay."
Why not replace Gustafsson or Kulak instead of replacing Romanov?
I would say, Gustafsson in this case.
But they like the offensive push now. Now all of a sudden, Gustafsson hasn't made as many.
When he's with a good rock solid defensive partner, you can kind of. And we saw this obviously in Philadelphia this season.
Yeah, he had some stretches.
He had some stretches where again it was the difference. With what you get out of Gustafsson, but
Romanov, man, that hit he throws on Pietrangelo, oh my gosh,
great.
That was, and then Seth Jones's reaction to it when he got back to the bench, that was phenomenal too. I don't know if you got to see that, but it's like
that's Seth Jones. What are you talking about?
I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind. Sorry, Shea Weber, Shea Weber's reaction when they get back to the bench is like, he says something and Roman, you can't see what he says, but you see Romanov just cracking up about it. Wow. And it was like that was a hell of a hit. I mean, that was in that moment there, combined with the first goal that was given up. I think Gustafsson was usually responsible for. There's just no reason in my mind that
it was a heck of a hit. What effect did it have on the game? It had none.
It had an effect on the game because in that early going, Mike, Montreal was totally taking it to them. And when you put down Pietrangelo like that,
scored the goal.
They didn't score the goal. Of course they didn't score the goal. But does that mean that he doesn't make that hit? He doesn't know that they're not going to score a goal. Mike, he's out there trying to I think
it had an effect for Romanov, Mike, to keep him in the lineup.
Yeah.
I think that's what that did.
No, it also was, if Montreal does score there, we're saying that had a big effect. I'm just saying that the reality is
it was a good moment in the game for Romanov. I agree that I think it should warrant him staying in Montreal's lineup. But overall, watching the game in its totality, Montreal was thoroughly hemmed in that game after that early stretch. I mean, Vegas was able to activate their defense very easily in there, and at times between the two goals between
Montreal is not used to teams spending that much time in their own end. They're just not.
There's no question.
And the only thing I can equate Petrie, playing with the altered glove, and Kevin will know this, and everybody else will know this because of watching the NFL as much as we have over the years. When an offensive line has had a broken hand or a broken finger, they wrap up their hand. It's almost like a big battering ram.
A club. It looks like a club.
Yeah, it looks like a club. I mean, that's basically what Petrie's going to be playing one-handed, basically.
Right, and that's why I don't know if that's worth it. Honestly, right. I don't think it's worth it. But Ducharme's going to do whatever he's going to do, man.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Like, if it was 2-0 right now, it was one thing. But if they still have a chance tonight to send this back to Montreal 1-1 without Petrie, I would think about it. I would think about waiting a little bit longer and not playing him.
What we said yesterday, Ak, is that you can't blame the loss on Carey Price because Carey Price was unbelievable. But the fact that Carey Price played as great as he did and they lost 4-1 is not a good sign for the Habs.
We're playing a very good team. Obviously Vegas is a very, very good team. They might be the best team. They might.
Honestly, I'll put it out there. I think Vegas, Colorado was my original pick to win the Cup. Right. Whoever came out of that series to me, I believe is going to be the Stanley Cup winner. Yeah. I think Vegas has all the motivation right now. The opportunities there, the culmination of what they've been doing for the last, several seasons of building up. This is probably their time in this.
Exactly. It was something.
It could be.
But the fact that Montreal's in it and has a chance is impressive. The fact that they took it to them early in that game was impressive. And yes, they didn't they didn't keep it going.
I mean, 10 minutes into it, they were no longer impressive.
No question. I mean, they have that the way that Montreal plays. The way they had played a lot of. If you've seen, they've scored a lot of early goals. Like against Winnipeg, they scored early goals right away. That's what they were doing, and that's what they were. That's their strategy right now, to go out and score that early goal, and that changed the thing. Unfortunately, they ran into Fleury, who made some unbelievable saves early on there that just kept them. They kept Vegas in it, and then once Vegas was in it, then they were in it, and that was it. And there's no question about it. They're obviously a better team than Montreal. They're deeper than Montreal. They're faster than Montreal. But at the same time, Montreal's still in it. So I still want to see, and we always say, doesn't matter until you lose at home, right? So we'll see what happens, right? But game two is tonight. And Kevin says game one doesn't matter. My wife heard that. She's like, I had a whole long discussion with Jody about that. Kevin Allen says game one doesn't matter. She was listening to the podcast as we were going in. Do you really think that's true? Do you realize you honestly feel that way, Kev?
I do. Here's what I don't feel that it doesn't matter. What I think is and covering the league for as long as I have, I've been fooled so many times by thinking a team has come out and won, and they look good, and then I realize that game one is just the feeling out game, and the series really doesn't get going till game two. So
a follow-up question on that, Kevin. So do you think is it more of a factor if it's a road win versus a home win? Does it make any bit of a difference there?
No, I've just covered so many series where a team has won the first game, and you think, "Wow, this is going to be a better series than I thought," and then that someone just takes charge and they roll.
It serves as a wake-up call to the team if it's an upset.
Well, and I really do think that there's something too, because always there's differing amounts of time for teams between series, and so I think that first game is always just okay. We got to get a look and see how they're going to react to us, and then everybody figures it out. They watch the video and they size up who can play with whom, and then they figure it all out. And I think both teams do that, but one team usually like I don't think it gives you as much help winning game one as people think it does. That's my take.
I thought it was really interesting because and then then we're sitting there and another one of my wife's least favorite things in the world is when she says, like 71% of the time, the team wearing blue that's leading after 2 periods wins the game. Like she hates things. She hates that statistic too. But it is true that 71% of the time in this that the team that wins game one wins the series. And that's that is kind of fascinating that way. Now that could be largely because game one is usually the home team at home, and they're usually the better team, and it could just play that whole thing out. But
what's funny about your wife not liking that is the math geeks
I know
have taken over betting.
I know
and it's all about probabilities and stuff. And I saw, and I didn't quite get the whole thing. Maybe someone else has paid attention to it if you play this, but one of the baseball sites where you get a lineup every day and you compete. Somebody now is offering the chance where they set the lineup so you can compete against the set lineup as opposed to competing against everyone else, because the math geeks have completely taken over. And they've sort of figured it out. So they're kind of bringing it back for the true baseball fans. So.
That's for sure. That's and then she, of course, is that kind of a math geek, for no questions asked there. All right. That's all I got, guys. Anybody else got anything? We're good.
Let me just ask Kevin this: see if the Dougie Hamilton story has advanced at all, because there's some speculation out there that Carolina is letting him go out there and test the waters and seek an 8-year deal. And they believe that he's going to come back and say he couldn't find it. I don't particularly believe that. I think there probably are maybe 3 or 4 teams that would be willing and probably willing to pay more to him than Carolina would. What have you heard, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it is accurate that the Carolina Hurricanes are hoping that he'll come back. And I think I told this story. I talked to a general manager who went and looked at all the cap friendly. He said, "Yeah, I see 3 teams that'll pay Hamilton that money, and there are 3 teams he doesn't want to go play for."
Right.
And the teams that he does want to play for are not in any position to give him, that kind of money.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I mean, when you were talking, and I thought there was enough contributions, but when you're talking about Hyman, I think it's possible that Hyman will not get the kind of money that he would like to get in the open market. Not that people don't respect what he does, because everybody does, but it's a flat cap. And, it's hard to, when you go through and, one GM's challenged me to go and add up all the available money and then look at the free agents and divide it and see how much it is per thing. And I didn't do that, but he has, and he said it's very amusing. What the average amount of money is.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so, I don't know. Something's going to give. Like, there's going to be some bargains somewhere if he's right. So,
you're right. No, there absolutely is. And all that means when that number is low is that means that there's going to be a lot of guys taking very little. Like, there's going to be a lot of guys, because there's the big guys are still going to get paid, right, Kev? So like you're going to get the little.
Well, yeah, you think so. You think that they get paid, but when they get to term, like when you look at the number of contracts that are out there that people regret, we go Skinner, we got Parisi, we've got Johansson, we've got Matt Duchene, to a lesser extent, we got Keith Yandel,
Voracek.
Yeah, Voracek. There's a lot of contracts out there. Even, you can even make a case for Ryan Ellis. Ryan Ellis is still a very good hockey player, but he hasn't been nearly as good as he was before he signed that long-term deal.
Right. That's very true. It's very, very true.
So anyway, there's a lot of guys out there. Now all of a sudden people are saying, boy, we should stay away from those lengthy deals. Now you kind of have to give them to some players, but
it's a lot of GMs can't help themselves, Kev, though.
No, you're right. You're right.
And we say this every year when we think that the cap constraints are out there. You would think that this would generate more hockey deals And I would think that this year would be the.
It's starting to. Yeah, I think you're right, Mike.
Well, there's already more players available in the trade market than's usually available.
Right, which I think is why this is. I mean, and that number probably, I would bet that number is below $2 million easily. Like probably like 1.5 million, Kev. That the average amount of money left for the average amount of maybe 1.5. I would guess.
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't tell me. He wanted me to do the math, and I just haven't had time to do it.
I would guess it's around there. I mean,
somebody mentioned Giroux in the chat. Randy mentioned Giroux in the chat. I wouldn't include Giroux with that. I think he's given based on his number. I think
he's giving them their money's worth.
I think he's giving Philadelphia their money's worth. It's the Voracek contract. Again, remembering when Voracek signed that contract, he was.
Listen, the JVR's contract
he was an upper echelon.
Well, we're forgetting the most obvious one, which is Bobrovsky, right? Like that's the one that's like, I mean, that's I mean, that's like that is by far, I think, the worst contract.
It is the worst.
Yeah. We didn't mention him, so
that, and that's the guy. I mean, that's $10 million, which is just ridiculous. Like that's a huge percentage of your cap right there. That's stuck.
How about Erik Karlsson at 11.5?
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
The San Jose Sharks have the worst salary cap situation when you consider all of the contracts. Like they have 6 guys on their team who are getting paid big money for extended periods, who, in my opinion, are not living up to their average salary.
Before they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, Kevin, they never had this problem. Like like Doug Wilson.
But that was the thing. They got so close that they felt like
they tried to push the boulder over.
But Wilson was the best at keeping his cap under control.
Right, but they got this close that they kind of pushed all the chips in. And
that's the great temptation when you're that close as a general manager. I remember reading enough books
I would say it's great temptation
and enough things on like Behind the Moves, for example, that book about how many times you get to that point, and that's really the danger point for longevity in a lot of circumstances for organizations.
I think Anthony is not about the general manager in this situation. I think that's the temptation point for the owner. Like I think
it is, but then the GM has to make that. But again, the GM then has to make the decision on where you spend that money.
I bet you a lot of Wilson stuff I think came from the owner. A lot of those bad deals.
The one, what GMs will say to you sometimes about the long-term deals is you have to view them not in terms of the average salary, but we're paying them, say it's a $10 million contract. We're actually paying them $15 million for the first 4 years,
right?
And then that's what we got to do in order to get them. And then we view the last part as where we're paying them kind of $5 million for that,
where we can buy them out and it doesn't hurt as much.
So, but
that depends.
True, that's a good point. It depends. All right, great stuff, guys. Have a great weekend. I'm just kidding. I got a lot of heat from
Happy New Year.
My family all heard me say that. Have a great weekend on Monday, and they were like, Dad.
I'm gonna go upstairs to take care of the turkey and stuff.
Yeah, just enjoy your weekend. Have a wonderful Christmas holiday. We'll be back again after that. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.